All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to another Facebook Live. We are here behind the breakthrough. We have a new guest today. I'm excited to introduce you guys to Adam. Adam and I got introduced through, I'll say, a mutual friend, Mike Wagner, and him and I had a conversation recently and found a lot of common similarities. I was like, Adam, we got to get you on a Storage Rebellion episode. And so Adam's with us today, and we're going to be diving deeper into a topic that I'm very excited about. And this is one that we talk a lot about within our Storage Rebellion community. And it is growing and scaling your business without sacrificing the things that matter most: your family, your faith, your relationships. And I think this is an area that Adam, similar to us, puts a lot of time and energy into. And so excited to dive into this topic. Adam, thank you so much for being here and taking time to hang out with the Storage Rebellion crew.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much for inviting me over. I'm looking forward to it. This is definitely something I'm passionate about. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And let's kind of kick things off. So tell us a little bit about Adam. I'd love to dive into your backstory a little bit, and then where you are today. And then we'll get into some of the deeper conversations. We'll talk more about faith and family and how you can grow your business in a way that doesn't jeopardize those things. But give us the backstory on Adam.
Boy, where to start? So I was a military brat, sort of military guy. I bounced all over the country as a young kid and then joined the military right out of high school. I signed up when I was 16 years old. I signed up pre 9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and I was like, well, I guess I know what I'll be doing in the military. So kind of changed the thought process a bit, right? Anyways, I did quite a bit of enlisted time as a paycheck to paycheck guy. I never knew what saving money was. I knew I always wanted to be a dad. I knew I always wanted to get married, but saving money, investing, none of that was ever on my brain. End up getting out of the military, go to college. I get married while I'm in college, and my wife had this magical thing called a savings account that I had also never heard of before. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, she was military, and she's like, I was like, you get paid every 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that you would save. Like, you're going to get another paycheck in 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, why do you need to save money? Anyways, I'm saying a lot to say she got me into investing. She said, hey, we should buy a house, and or we should buy real estate, is what she said. And then I do some research, and I said, all right, we're about to buy an apartment building. And she said, wait a minute. I was thinking like the house down the street, not an apartment building, right? But I just did a bunch of research. It took me about 4 years to really grasp my brain around it. Did a lot of like figuring it all out by myself. And then I finally got into a group, not too dissimilar to this, only on the apartment building side. And within 6 months, I'd bought my first property with some folks inside of the community. It was a 62-unit apartment in Tennessee while we were living in Japan at the time. We'd already had one kid. Our second was not even on the way yet. But that was the beginning of it. And I started to help build an education company that taught military members and veterans how to invest in real estate. I ended up with a couple hundred doors of apartment buildings. The education company, I've got an assisted living facility. I own a couple businesses here or there. Yeah. But now we've got 3 kids. I've been married for 16 years. We homeschool our amazing kids. And it's fantastic. Yeah. I don't know what else you want me to throw in there, but I hope that was a good summary.
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you for your service. And it sounds like you got multiple businesses going on. You're also, you have the family life. I'm curious, and I kind of want to go into, I'll kind of want to start with balancing these things, because we have a lot of members in our group who, a lot of them are, at the 2, 3, 4 facility range. They're getting some momentum. They're starting to grow their businesses. And sometimes, especially when you're in growth mode, it's really easy to get stuck in that. And I'm kind of curious as to maybe some systems or some ways or recommendations you might have for folks who are at that period right now. They're getting ready to grow their businesses, and they also don't want to sacrifice the time and the things that matter most, which is their family. How did you balance everything, especially having so many businesses today? How do you balance everything and make sure that you're also making enough time for your family?
I think there's a multi-layer answer to this question. So first off, I did not balance it very well to start, right? It took a while to kind of ease into it, understand where I was going, what I was doing wrong. I would buy a large syndication, have a 80 unit apartment that we're managing and doing all this stuff for. And, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to be on these calls, I need to do all those things while on top of my W-2 and, trying to be a dad. So it would be like 4 hours of sleep is kind of the route that I would go, as opposed to making the wise moves. But what I really did that I would recommend everybody do is sit down with your spouse if you're married, and say, hey, what is it that we want in life? Not what is it that I want in life. What is it that we want in life together? Because I had created this whole list of things. I went to this conference and it was like, oh yeah, you could dream this and think about this. And, it was like semi Tony Robbins-esque, but it was a multifamily conference, right? And so I'm writing all these things out, and I was telling I was showing my wife this list later, like this private jet that I wanted, and the houses and the places that I wanted, and all these things. And then there was something, it took my wife like a year before she was like, I don't really want any of that stuff. Like, sure, it would be nice. And then I was like, boy, I just created an entire future without ever including my wife, who is the biggest, most important part of my future. Like, what a selfish jerk. So I had to kind of step back a minute, scrap the whole plan, and say, okay, what is it that you want? And she's like, I just want to be able to go on a vacation a couple times a year. I want to be able to go and have fun. I want a little bit of land. I want to be around my family. I was like, all right, this is all simple stuff. I can do this, right? This is easy. So when we really broke down what we wanted, it wasn't $100 million net worth and this massive empire. It was this is what is sufficient. This is what makes sense. So when we get to that point, it's easier on a piece of paper once you've kind of planned that out and you've had this vision of where you want to go, to say, okay, yeah, like we're at a place where we can be comfortable. If anybody listening to this, anything like me, you're never going to be satisfied. You want to grow and you want to build, you want to do all these things. But if you remember why it is what you're doing and you have a core understanding of what it is, like everybody starts, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people start in real estate, in storage, in apartments, in insert real estate asset here, for financial freedom, quote unquote.
Sure.
What does that mean? Have you written down what financial freedom means? Do you have a financial freedom number like in your brain? Like, okay, this is what I need to make my expenses. Okay, well, once you get that, okay, well, now maybe we establish what the extra cushion is that we want. But remembering that first things first, and I try to tell everybody on my podcast, anybody I talk to, anybody anywhere, is it goes, my God, my wife, my kids, then everything else, right? So sometimes that means the business needs to go, today I need to be all day in the business, right? Because that's still putting my kids and my wife first, because if I don't take care of things at the business, well, then financially we fall apart, right? So, that doesn't mean that it's, oh man, all the time, all this. My kids need to see what hard work as a leader of the family looks like, not just sitting on my butt and saying, oh yeah, let me collect these checks. But no, hard work, what it takes. So the balance side of the house to me is more establishing what it is that you actually want as a family, what it is that you actually need as a family, where is it that you're trying to go, and then chase that. Don't chase somebody else's dream. Don't chase somebody else's why. Don't chase somebody else's anything. It's you and your wife sit down, or you and your husband sit down and say, this is what we need to work out.
Yeah, dude, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you touched on that, including your spouse. I think we oftentimes, especially new entrepreneurs, they kind of get wrapped up in the things that they want to create, the success that they want to have. And I think similar to what you said, like I created this big thing without including the most important person. And so I definitely don't think you're alone in that. I've fallen guilty of that. I think a lot of people do. Is there anything as far as so it sounds like you have a lot of clarity on this. And when you're juggling, is there ever a time where you kind of get maybe wrapped up in one area and maybe you kind of start to fall away from the other areas? And if so, how do you catch yourself in that? Or does it take somebody else to catch it for you?
So, I said that was going to be a multi-pronged answer for the last one, and I never told the second prong. This is actually the second prong that I want to discuss. Okay. So thank you for mentioning that. Is a lot of people look at balance and they discuss balance like it's a scale from science class in 10th grade, right? It's like, okay, well, if I put this amount of things over here, how many grams do I need to put over here? And then, okay, now we're balanced. Sure. So if we were to balance life like that, I would say, okay, well, I've got 8 hours of work, and then I'm going to have 8 hours of my family, then I'm going to have 8 hours of sleep, and then, all right, I'm done. Sure. Well, that's not exactly how life works. Like I look at it more along the lines of seasons. Sometimes you're in winter, sometimes you're in fall, sometimes you're in summer. So, but they kind of gradually shift into each other. Say, okay, like right now I'm in a little bit of a winter stage. Like it's a harder work. Like it's difficult because I just acquired another business. So 3 months ago, I bought another business. So I'm really in the business a lot more. My sons have noticed it. They're like, Daddy, we don't get as much time with you because they've been used to me sitting in this seat running a business from my computer instead of now having to be somewhere with employees and hiring and firing and building things and, you know, doing all of that. They're like, what is happening? But we had discussions like this is a point in the season of where we're at where I'm going to have to work hard. And then once I get everything set up and I can establish it, I've put in all of the work that we can get the fruit later. Right. So I put in all the work now, prep the land, get it all set so that when spring and summer hits, the fruit is there and I can relax and enjoy the work that we've put in. So they're kind of like, okay, I get it. All right. And then they'll come and visit me at work and they'll hang out because again, we homeschool. So it's no big deal. I'll bring them into the office with me and they'll help me do things and they'll meet the team and, you know, okay, how did this thing go today? Or they'll ask me about, you know, did we make a lot of money today at the business? You know, it's just fun conversations we get to have that I would have never been able to have if we didn't homeschool, and B, if I didn't stay that open with them about where it's at. So how do I kind of look at it in that way of having those conversations with my spouse, having those conversations with my wife and say, hey, this is one of those times where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I'm not going to be around as much. My brain is going to be working a lot more, and that's okay. I still set the time aside to go, you know, we'll go to theme parks and we'll have barbecues and we'll do all the normal stuff. But it's just a little bit more work than it is play at the moment.
Sure. As you're kind of talking through this, a lot of this kind of ties into identity. You've gained a lot of clarity around what's most important, how you need to show up. And I kind of want to dive into this a little bit because I think it's an important topic. And we oftentimes talk about this as well. People sometimes get so hung up in, you know, when they're talking about growth, they focus primarily on the business elements and not the internal personal elements that allow them to grow. And so I'm sure there's been parts of your journey where you as an individual had to shift, you had to grow. And I'm kind of curious, what parts of your identity had to change in order for you to grow to where you are today?
Ooh, boy, how long do we have? So
we got the time, Adam. Go deep.
Good. Let's go. So part of this might go a little dark, and
that's okay.
So I was a military guy for a long time, right? And every day, at least 22 veterans a day are committing suicide on average. Part of that is because they held their identity in that uniform that they wore. They held their identity in their ability to kick a door down. They held their identity in how well they flew an airplane. They held their identity in something other than, well, for me, God, where I think everybody should hold their identity is being a man or woman of God. We are created by Him to be a blessing in this world, to help push His word, His agenda, towards ultimately what God has for us. When you root your identity in anything else other than that, it is sure to falter. When you associate yourself in like if you are saying that, oh, I am a storage investor, that is who I am, and then all of a sudden you have an investment that goes bad, well, your identity just went south because, okay, maybe I'm not actually a storage investor. I'm a storage failure. No, a failure is an event. It's not a person. So you're not a storage failure. So let's look back and say, okay, what is it that happened? The event was these things led to me losing a property. Every investor loses money at some point, right? So that's going to happen. But if your identity is, no, I'm a person trying to be a good steward of my money, trying to be a good steward of my investors' money, that I'm working hard to be a great father, a great husband, and that's where you keep your identity, is in God and in line with what that goes into, you're going to end up a lot better. So I had the benefit of being able to say, okay, well, I'm shedding this uniform, and how do I shed this uniform and become a different person? And I didn't do it so well the first time. I ended up going back in the military as an officer because all I knew was military. Like, that was my whole life. I was a military brat turned military guy. Now I'm married to a military woman, and it was like, well, now what do I do? I guess I'm going to go back in the military. So I went back in. And thankfully I did. I ended up doing really well, and then had the ability to buy some apartment buildings in there. But then I became an investor, and I was like, oh yeah, here I am. I'm a multifamily investor. I'm an owner of a business, and I own these apartments, and I blah blah blah. Well, then the market shifted a little bit. We had some ability to sell them, so we sold all those things, and it was like, well, now I don't actually own any apartments. Am I really an apartment? No, I'm still I'm still a man of God. I'm still a dad. I'm
Yeah.
still a husband. Like, this is where I want to root, because if all that other stuff fades away, and it will,
Mm-hmm.
my wife and kids are there. Like, my legacy as a dad is going to last way longer than any legacy of a business that I create.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like, it's taken me a while to shed some of those things. And like, no, like, I need to have my identity rooted in God, rooted in Christ, and then shared with my wife and kids. And then we do all of this stuff together in business. So yes, I'm a business
Yeah.
owner. Yes, I love being able to coach, to be able to mentor, to be able to help people, to be able to buy businesses and change them over. None of that is anything other than, like, God gives me the opportunity to do this. Let me go ahead and use this opportunity to the best of my abilities and move forward.
Yeah, dude, you touched on such an important concept, if you will, here. I think a lot of people will put their identity in the thing they do and the work that they
Mhm.
do, and they act as if that's who they are. The work is who they are,
Yeah.
and similar to what you said, like if something happens, now who are you, right? And we see this
Yeah.
oftentimes with. I've seen this a lot, and I've experienced this, but I've seen this a lot with athletes who something happens, maybe an injury, they can't play the sport anymore, and they go through this identity crisis. Well, if I can't do
Yeah.
that, who am I? Years ago, you don't know this about me, but from probably the ages of, I'd say 8 years old or so, up until about 24, 25, I was trying to play professional golf. Like that was my everything. And I, not knowing any better at the time, put my identity into that. And once I started getting a little bit older and I realized even if I was good enough to play professional golf, which I wasn't, but even if I was, I wouldn't want that lifestyle. Like I'm too much of a family man. I'm a
Yeah.
stay-at-home kind of guy. Like I wouldn't be able to keep up with that lifestyle of traveling the country every single week and being away from my family. And so once I realized that wasn't the life for me, even if I could have done it, I went through that crisis of like, well, who am I? I spent the last, quarter of my life or more with this belief that
Mhm.
this was who I was and what I was going to do. So I'm glad you touched on that, and I totally agree with you. Right, it's your identity comes in Christ, and we're called to walk with Christ. And in order to do that, we need to know who He is, and we can lead our life in that way. And speaking of it, I'm curious as to how your faith has how it shaped your leadership in, I would say, in both business and as a husband and a father. Um, how has that shaped things for you? How do you move differently because of it?
Well, I'll say that I started getting a little bit. It opened my eyes a bit more when I got engaged. It was like, holy crap! Like,
Mhm.
this is different. Like, I'm going to, if this Bible stuff is true, which I believe it is, I'm about to now be a leader of a family. Um, that's instantly changed. And then I became a father, and it was like, oh wow! Like, this is, not only am I like trying to help lead my wife and make sure that we're financially stable and we're doing the right things, but I got to make sure that I'm doing this for my kids as well. So every decision had to be kind of based in understanding that. Now, that doesn't mean that I was like a great Bible scholar or knew a whole bunch of stuff. I knew what I was supposed to be as the leader of the house, and working side by side with my wife next to her, kind of making great decisions for the family, and doing the right things. And it was like, okay, what does that mean? Okay, well, I have to think about my future. Where does that want to go? All right, it's not just I don't want to just do, and this is nothing against folks at W2, but where I was like, I don't want to just sit here with a W2. I want my kids to be able to travel with me. I want to be able to go and see places. I want to be able to help them experience life in a different way, to be able to show them different parts of the world that they wouldn't have been able to see. So how do I do that while staying a strong Christian? Okay, well, we don't miss church.
Mhm.
If for some reason we can't go to church, we're watching it on our phones or on a laptop or on the TV. If we're stuck here at the house, if we're on the road, then we're doing something. We're going to do church. We also homeschool, which helps us kind of include Bible study inside of our curriculum. A majority of our friends are Christian friends. And you are the average of the 5 people you hang around most is I think a Jim Rohn thing. So it's not just in business side of the house. That's also in your personal life. So yes, we want to be around great business owners and entrepreneurs who are strengthening us and making us wise in our business side of the house. But are we being that intentional with our relationships that are helping us be stronger in Christ as well? So that's something that helps kind of keep me grounded and keep me focused on the right things, prioritizing those things properly.
Sure.
There was something else I was going to say, and I don't remember. Man, it was super important too. That had to have been super important since I forgot it. But it, I in the grand scheme of things, when it comes down to the business side of the house, Ryan Pineda is a guy that I used to listen to a lot. I don't listen to him as much anymore. I just don't have at the time. But awesome entrepreneur, Christian dude, has a great Christian group for business owners. And he started one for golfers too, by the way.
Yeah,
I'll have to chat with you about that. But yeah, he had said at one point, and this was years ago, that being unequally yoked, as the Bible talks about with being married to your spouse, you shouldn't be unequally yoked. An ox can't be yoked with a donkey, right? So like you can't have a married person, or you shouldn't be married to a non-believer if you're a believer. And then he had talked about that being applicable in other places in life as well, like making sure that you're paying attention to that in your business, because that will affect your business decisions on whether or not, if you're both Christians, your business decisions will be affected differently than if you guys were not both Christians. And that really kind of struck me hard. And it took me a few years to really kind of put those pieces together and adjust how I was doing it, because obviously I'm involved in multiple businesses and partnerships and et cetera. So I'd say that it has made a much larger impact now, where I get to sit back and go, okay, yeah, I want to do business with other Christians and help, help the church grow together and build together and be a good force for good. And now even inside, I just bought an escape room a couple months ago. That's the business I talked about it. And inside there, I've got a sign up there that talks about this business belongs to God. So now all of my employees, that's in our employee break room, where not even break room, our office. So everybody gets to see what it is. It's got some Bible verses on it. It's got different things so that when they walk in, they can kind of see the stage that's already been set. Like, this is what we're doing. This is where we're at. And it just makes a difference, and I can talk about things openly and freely and not have to worry about it. And like, if it is what it is, like, this is who I am. So this is what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, there's so much good stuff there. I feel like this particular topic we could talk about for quite a long time. And I'm actually, I know I'll be joining you on a podcast, I think next month. So hopefully we dive into some of these topics, because I really enjoy it. But I'm curious if it's okay with you. Well, before I get to this, actually, because you mentioned the escape room, I want to bring this up. How many businesses total do you have right now?
2 technically.
Okay. And you also have, so you have the escape room. I know you have the BizDad podcast.
Yeah, so I've got the BizDad podcast. I've got a Delegate That podcast that I host for somebody else. I've got an assisted living facility, and then my management company of all of the stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. That actually answers a question for me. Okay. If it's okay with you, you're clearly been very successful. You have your priorities in a line. I'm sure you're the type of person, especially, past military, you are, you have a lot of structure probably, and you probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably very big on structuring your life, your day, your business for success. And I'm kind of headed into the direction of habits. Is that okay if we talk about that?
We can absolutely do that. I'll tell you where I falter a lot and where I do okay. So
perfect. Okay, even better. I love that. I'd love to know a little bit about maybe. I have a few questions here on habits. I'm trying to decide maybe which one might be the best one to get into. Is there anything? Let me ask you this first. Is there anything that has been regimen for you for more than several years, where it's like, this affects me greatly in all areas of my life, that I can't not do it? And I know we talked about faith, and I'm sure that's probably at the top. Is there anything else that's just very regimen for you because it shifts how you show up in all areas?
Boy, there's a couple things that I would say that I'm not sure I'd say regimented. I was not your typical military guy, because there was a time where everything was super regimented. I was always working out. I was lifting a lot of weights. I was doing all the things. I was showing up on the PT on time. But as I started to get an entrepreneurial mind, it really altered a lot of things, where I started to open my mouth a little bit more freely. I started to push back on things that I didn't think were right. And it kind of led me down a path of going, okay, not everything has to be exactly this. So, so say yes, the faith side, of course. Spending time with my wife is how I get a good reset. Whether that is just having a conversation with her at the end of the night, whether that's, sometimes it's even like we're cleaning the house and we just have a conversation together, or we watch a TV show together and just have a conversation about what we saw and about, what the enjoyment. Sometimes there's silly waste of time things that are regimented, where it's like, we are just shoulder to shoulder, or, sitting in the same couch chair together, watching stupid Facebook reels, right? Where you're doom scrolling together. But it is time where I get to sit with the love of my life and just kind of chat and enjoy that time. That is where I get the majority of my reset. And right now our life is very different than it usually was, because my wife is just retiring from the military. Sure. And I just bought the business. So my schedule is completely jacked up. So I don't get the workouts in the way I used to. I don't have the schedule that I used to, because now I'm at work until 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. I'm waking up later than normal. I'm all over the place. So the only constant for me is change. Sure. But I will say that the only thing that keeps me on track is my calendar. If I don't have the things in my calendar, they do not get done. My calendar and my checklist. That's it. If they're not on there, it's not going to happen. Yeah. I would have never remembered that I was having this call if it wasn't sitting on my calendar, because my brain moves 7,000 miles an hour, and then I forget all about it. And then, sure. I rely on that thing sitting in front of me and checking it every single day. The other habits that I'll say that keep me supercharged and in focus is I will never leave the house without kissing my kids and my wife goodbye and telling them that I love them. Doesn't matter what's going on. And I realize none of this is necessarily business related, but life is not like this. This is not, to me, this is way more important, because if you get these in line, the rest of it is okay.
Absolutely.
So those are I would say the biggest habits that keep me rolling. I am not, I'm a rather broken guy. I do a terrible job working out now, because I would go to the gym for a while, and then I've got 3 broken vertebrae in my back. Yeah. I've got a replaced disc in my neck, and I've got another one that's bad. I'm all jacked up from my years of being in the military and running around all over different countries doing stupid things. So I used to do a lot of working out, and now I would go in there with the same intensity that I had when I was 25 and not in this bad a shape. And then I break myself again. So I've toned down a little bit of that. I still try to eat healthy and still try to do all of that sort of stuff. But for longevity purposes, because I'd like to play with my grandkids, but I don't know if I'm really going to be the guy to answer your question best, but I make sure that the priority things are, again, my wife, my kids, and those are the habits that I put in place. And then the rest of it all work out, because I know that, hey, when I go into the office, I know that my kids know that I'm putting them first by going in the office, and they're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you over the years have kind of ebbed and flowed through how things have changed
a lot.
I know this is, and I think that's a skill, and I think that's something I think a lot of people struggle with that. Personally, I struggle with that when I get so routine in my habits and things like that. And one of the things that I do is I try to get up as early as I can before the kids are up, get everything in beforehand. That allows me to feel at my best so I could show up. And anytime that gets interrupted, I have a hard time adjusting to that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I could work on is adjusting. And it sounds like for you're just making sure the biggest priorities are focused on the faith and the family, the relational stuff. Right? Am I missing? Is there anything else?
No, you're spot on, because you have to also look at my background, right? I was a military guy turned military, or a military brat turned military guy, right? So I have never had a constant anything in my life. I lived in one house for more than 3 years ever in my entire life. My wife, her mom still lives in the same house my wife was born in, right? And that boggles my mind. I've probably lived in, not exaggerating, 30 houses. Wow. It just, all I know is change. So I've got zero issue adjusting. So if I keep my core things, everything else doesn't matter. Because tomorrow, in my previous life, tomorrow, it could be, hey, they're going to give me a call and they're going to say, hey, it's off to Afghanistan, you go. Okay, no problem. I'm ready. Let's go. So I pack my stuff, put it in a storage unit, and go. But that was not a big deal. Now, as I have a family, it's like, hey, we're looking at right now, putting the house on the market, selling it, buying a Class A RV, and driving the country. Why? Because my kids are young enough to be able to enjoy that life and be able to do it. So why not? Like, I could put some business stuff on hold. Like, I can go build a larger empire when my kids are out of the house later on. No big deal. Like, I'm never going to stop working. I love doing this. So take advantage of what the priority needs to be right now, and that's my family.
That's fantastic, dude. It's something I need to remember. And I see Kelsey in the comments here. Same thing for her as well. I love that you shared that, man. That was equally as helpful for me as well. I could tell a lot, just through our conversation. One of your strengths clearly is mindset related. And I know you do some coaching too, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you coach? Is it mostly real estate folks, or is it kind of a mix of everything?
Business and dad stuff is mostly what I'm focused on. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. Is there
real estate or business, either one? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything as far as like patterns that you see let me say this. Is there any mindset related patterns that you see in the people that you support that tends to keep them stuck? Is there a common theme you might come across?
There's this quote that's been banging around in my head the last couple days, and I've said it to probably 5 people in the last couple days. Mm-hmm. It's a William Shakespeare quote. It says, nothing is, I'm going to probably I'm going to butcher the quote a little bit, but nothing is either good or bad. It's thinking that makes it so. So what a lot of people will do is their brain will start thinking one thing is good or bad, right? Like we could be in the middle of this conversation and I can go like this. And you could be over there being self-conscious, right? My eyes open up, I put my head back a little bit, and you're like, "Boy, what did I say? Like, like what just happened? Like, did he get upset about something I said? Like, did I catch him off guard? What's going on?" And so now your thinking is changing everything about it. But what really happened is I just stubbed my toe a little bit. And I went, "Oh, that hurt," and I don't want to show it anymore. So I get like whatever it is. So you don't have a clue until you open your mouth and ask me, like, "Hey, what just happened there?" So a common thing that people will do is they'll tell a story in their head, and then they'll live out that story. It's the same reason that we pick our identity in the nonsense that we pick our identity in, because we've told ourselves a story that this is what I have to do. So if you continue to tell yourself stories in your head, you're going to live out this story. You're going to believe it. And there's this book that I love, and of course I'm talking a lot about the faith side of the house, but it's called The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, and it basically talks about this guy Wormwood and his uncle, or is it his nephew? I don't remember which one Wormwood is, but anyways, it's basically servants of the devil that are standing there saying, "Hey, this is how you can get inside of this Christian's head to make him not think that he's good enough, or make him not believe in Christ, or make him not believe blah blah blah, make him not believe in himself, make him not, all these things." And then you read it and you go, "Man, I've told myself that story 7,000 times. This page is speaking to me because I've told myself this story." So I would say the common theme is oftentimes that we've told ourselves a story about something, and then anger usually comes from anger, frustration, irritation. All of that comes from the outcome not turning out the way you wanted it to, right? You had an idea in your head, and you already talked about it, Chris, but your morning, if it gets screwed up, like you had your morning all set out in your head, you knew this was going to happen here, this was going to happen there, I've got it all set up, and then a kid wakes up early and peed the bed. So now you're changing the sheets, and you're like, "My day is ruined. I can't believe," because you had this expectation and then it didn't happen. So now you're like, "Man, now I'm all upset." Well, if my expectation is just, "Hey, I'm going to wake up early so that I could get a good start on my day." Well, did you wake up early? Okay, well, then the rest of your day doesn't need to be bad just because something didn't, like these 4 steps didn't happen, and this is one of the things I think the military has helped me out a ton with, right? Because, Mike Tyson said everybody's got a plan to get punched in the mouth, right? Yeah. And that's the same thing we talk in the military. We talked about a lot of times, like plans are worthless, but planning is priceless. Mm-hmm. So you can have all the planning in the world, set yourself up, but the plan itself doesn't mean it's going to go that way. So let it go. Realize that it's not always going to work out the way I want it to, but that's okay. I'm going to roll with the punches and move forward. It's not always going to go. I'm not going to hit 100% of my goals all the time. I'm not going to be able to do all these things. My expectation with my wife is not going to be exactly met, partly because I didn't open my mouth and let her know what my expectation was anyways, because I've told a story in my head that she already daggum knows, or she should know me well enough because we've been married for 16 years. So, all of this kind of rolls in together to say, hey, I've told myself a story in my head, and this is the way I think it should work out. And if it doesn't, and then I'm just going to pounce. And, and that's nonsense.
Yeah, dude, so much gold there. A lot of what you're saying too is like, Well, there's a couple things I want to touch on, but one of them is perspective, right? It's you're going to live out the life in a way, how you perceive the world, I guess. And I don't know if you're familiar. I think Tony Robbins talks quite a bit about the reticular activating system and
Hmm.
how essentially what happens is this whatever story we tell ourselves, our reticular activating system, which lives within our brainstem, will filter the world around us to show us more of those things, which then reinforces the belief, and it just
Yep.
creates this vicious cycle. And one of the best ways I think I talked about this at an event, right? So if we got investors, for an example, if there's an investor who believes, well, there's just no more good deals out there. I've
Hmm.
looked, I've tried, there's no more deals out there. Your reticular activating system will kick into gear to try to show you why that's true. So what happens is you end up missing opportunities simply because of how you're viewing them, because of your
Yeah.
perspective and your belief around them. Um, Telling yourself a story, this is huge. So I ran into this issue maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was getting ready to step into ownership of one of my first storage facilities. I wholesaled a handful before, and then I knew if I was going to create real wealth, I had to stay in ownership. And when I found a deal, which was actually a home run deal, like it wasn't a single or a double, this was a home run deal. It checked all the boxes. And it wasn't until after we went under contract where I started telling myself the story of, you know, you don't know what you're doing. You've never owned
Yeah.
real estate before. Like, what qualifies you to be in charge of this asset and be responsible for these tenants and run this business? You're not qualified. I just kept telling myself this story. And so what happened was I started to believe that nonsense. And I was like, well, the smartest thing to do is just to wholesale it and get rid of it. That way I don't have to
Hmm.
worry about any of it. And that, had I done that, would have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it took somebody similar to like you who was smart enough to pick me up at the time, put me over here and say, Chris, I see what's happening here. Like, this is all a story that you're telling yourself. Um, and it really does, like, the story you tell yourself will dictate how you show up in the world, how you respond in the world, how you respond to your situations, your marriage, your relationships, everything. How do people catch this? I'm curious if there's anything you can maybe share on this, or anything that comes to mind for people who constantly find themselves in these patterns. But here's the thing: they don't oftentimes know that they're in these patterns. Is there any tips or tricks to help people identify when they are telling themselves a story, and maybe what they could do from there?
I'll go back to you are the five people you're around most, right? Who
Yeah,
is it that you're talking
your
with about
environment.
this, right? Who in your environment do you have that you can have this conversation with, that's been there, maybe that's experienced something similar, that maybe it's not specifically in storage investing, but in life, that I'm sure you have people that have had to do some pivots, can understand that, hey, I told myself stories for a long time, or hey, I just want to sit down, have a conversation. Like, I'm in a mastermind group with a bunch of other entrepreneurs where I get to sit down, have conversations. Say, hey, this is where I'm struggling right now, whether it's in my business, whether it's in my personal life. This is my belief system that I've created. Does anybody else? And they're able to poke holes and say, no, you're not looking at this right. You're not able